So yes, we have people in the U.S. who, in their mental blindness, uh, think about continued escalation all the way to nuclear Armageddon. They really do. They're very ignorant people, and they're around in high positions. And so when you ask what comes next is whether President Trump can change course. This is the most important question facing the United States. And there are several different factions in Washington right now that are fighting for ultimate say. There's a piece by Mitch McConnell, our octogenarian who is completely living in a delusional past, who has a lead article in Foreign Affairs magazine calling for America to commit to primacy. And he calls for a massive military buildup to get ready for every kind of eventuality with Russia and China. That's the old school, and it remains very powerful. And it's got very powerful interests because it's the biggest business in Washington, about $1.5 trillion of annual spending for the military machine. And Mitch McConnell absolutely represents that. Then there are groups that say, we don't really have any fundamental conflict with Russia, and Russia's no real threat to us, but China's the real threat. So we should end the war in Ukraine, something I completely agree with. But we should do it so that we build up and get ready for the war with China. And this is kind of the middle ground, which is
a war with China.
Well,
a country that manufactures all of our antibiotics.
Everyone is talking about war with China in Washington by 2027. And it's so weird, as if we just are trying to rush headlong into complete destruction. But we have official documents, a Navy strategy saying we must prepare for war with China by 2027. We had a major article in the New York Times, which I actually once upon a time read with interest. But in any event, it was a story about the Pentagon preparing for war with China. And I wrote the reporter, actually. This is another, I know these people for decades, so I wrote the reporter and I said, thank you for writing that story. I was happy to read it now because there'll be no time to read it after the war. We'll all be dead, so I'm glad that we have the story now. And the reporter wrote back to me right away, said, Jeff, the editor, I had put in 3 times that the Pentagon doesn't want this war, but the editor took it out 3 times, and I don't really know why, and I didn't notice that in the hurrying to finish the piece. Do you understand that? You're one of our world's great journalists, a person writing a front page story about war, and she's written 3 times the Pentagon doesn't want it, and the editor takes that out all the time, and she didn't recognize that. That's the New York Times. I don't know even what that means. But
well, that's when you quit. I mean, you can't allow that.
This is so amazing. But yes, there is a group gearing up for war with China. It's unbelievable. Nuclear superpower with a much larger army in their on their shores. I mean, the whole thing is beyond belief. Then there is a group. There actually is a group that says, hey, we don't need war with anybody. We're not threatened. The United States is more secure than at any time in history and any time that a country could be secure. We have 2 big oceans. No one can attack us. We have every amount of deterrence. China does not threaten us and could not threaten us. And so, what are we talking about war this way? Why are we in war with Russia in Ukraine? And that is a U.S. Russia war, as everybody should understand. Why are we at war all over the Middle East? And that is a U.S. war. We've got absolutely troops on the ground in the. I mean, we have troops on the ground, of course, but we have forces on the ground. They're often CIA or covert. But yes, this is our wars. We're paying for them. We're financing them. We're arming them. We're the intelligence, if you can use that word. Why do we need a war with China? And so there are people who say, hey, why don't we make business, advance technology, actually have some attention to our economic needs, not go bankrupt in the process? And that group is also part of the Trump incoming team. And this is probably the most consequential question that a country could face is which of these different voices will prevail in this new administration.